This modest diamond tiara lay hidden in royal vaults for decades before gaining worldwide fame at the wedding of Prince William and Kate Middleton in 2011. Yet, few know that it was originally a symbol of Prince Albert's deep affection for his beloved wife. Despite its significance, it never became one of Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother's most frequently worn tiaras, and for good reasons. In the future, the halo scroll tiara often highlighted the beauty of young princesses. But as soon as their collections included larger sparklers, this tiara disappeared from public view. However, calling it a minor tiara would be a mistake. It impresses with its sparkle and elegance up close. Behind this brilliance lies a far deeper and more powerful love story. I believe your perception of it will change as you learn more about its origins. Let's follow the touching love story that this tiara holds within its shimmering diamonds. Before we begin, please support my channel by clicking the like and subscribe buttons. Thank you. To truly appreciate the significance of the halo scroll tiara, we must travel back to the early 20th century, to the moment when a young Prince Albert and Elizabeth first met. Elizabeth, the daughter of the 14th Earl of Strathmore and Kinghorn, was a charming and lively young woman, well-loved in aristocratic circles. Prince Albert, known informally as Bertie within his family, was the second son of King George V and Queen Mary. Their paths first crossed in 1905 when Elizabeth's parents hosted a party at their castle, attended by members of the royal family, including the young Prince Albert. He was 10 years old, and Elizabeth was 5. In a sweet gesture, she treated her guest to cherries. Their first meeting was serendipitous, but it wasn't until the summer of 1920 that their story truly began. Elizabeth attended a dance hosted by Lord and Lady Farquhar, where Prince Albert was immediately taken with her. Bertie was smitten, but winning Elizabeth's heart would prove to be a challenge. By winter, it was clear that Albert was deeply in love. In the spring, Albert finally mustered the courage to propose, but Elizabeth turned him down. She felt afraid never again to be free to think, speak, and act as I feel I really ought to. Elizabeth later wrote to him, "It makes me so miserable to think of it. You have been so very nice about it all. Please do forgive me." While she was fond of him, Elizabeth was reluctant to give up her close family life and privacy for the rigorous royal duties. Albert, however, was not discouraged. His love for Elizabeth was unwavering. He saw in her the qualities that could bring happiness and stability to his life. His persistence was supported by his family, particularly his mother, Queen Mary, who believed that Elizabeth was the perfect match for her son. Queen Mary was captivated by Elizabeth's charm and was certain that she could make her son happy. Albert proposed for a second time after Elizabeth participated as a bridesmaid at the wedding of Princess Mary to Henry, Viscount Lascelles at Westminster Abbey. Expressing that he was among her most loyal and cherished friends, Elizabeth conveyed her profound regret for having turned down his proposal once again. Plunged into a state of despair, the Duke harbored fears that the woman he desired to wed might now never consent to the union. A turning point came when a rumor surfaced that Elizabeth might marry Albert's elder brother, Edward. The thought of losing her to his brother spurred Albert to propose once more. On Saturday, January 13th, he went for a walk with Elizabeth at the Bowes-Lyon home at St. Paul's S, Waldenbury, and proposed again. This time, Elizabeth accepted. Queen Mary wrote in her diary a few days later, once the couple had visited, "We are delighted and he looks beaming." The wedding took place on April 26, 1923, at Westminster Abbey. 3 years later, they welcomed their first child, Elizabeth, who would later become Queen Elizabeth II. Their second daughter, Margaret, was born in 1930. For the first 13 years of their marriage, the Duke and Duchess of York led lives that were almost ordinary, as much as being titled and immensely wealthy could be considered ordinary. Their lifestyle was similar to that of their friends and Elizabeth's family, typical of the British aristocracy between the wars. They resided in a large, comfortable house in Mayfair and had a lodge within the grounds of Windsor Castle, where they spent weekends gardening or riding, surrounded by their cherished dogs and their 2 young daughters. During this period, both Bertie and Elizabeth maintained close relationships with Prince Edward, who was then the heir to the throne, and later became King Edward VIII. The 3 young royals would often go out partying together. As the second son of King George V and Queen Mary, Bertie was the spare to heir Prince Edward, and was never expected to be crowned king. Both he and Elizabeth were content with their lives in the shadow of Edward, who was first in line to the throne. During these years of their marriage, Elizabeth provided Bertie with the confidence and support he needed, making him feel secure and happy. In November 1936, George VI sought to create a symbol of his admiration and love for his supportive and steadfast wife, Duchess Elizabeth. He commissioned Cartier, renowned for its luxury and exquisite craftsmanship, to design a piece that would not only reflect the royal aesthetic opulence, but also embody the personal and intimate affections he held for her. This exquisite piece, known as the Diamond Halo Tiara, was meticulously crafted to capture the essence of regality and delicacy in its scrolls and floral motifs. The tiara features a band of 16 graduated scrolls, set with 739 brilliants and 149 baton diamonds, each scroll divided by a graduated brilliant and crowned with a large brilliant at the center. At the time, the then Duchess of York had a relatively modest collection of jewelry, including the turquoise parure, the lotus flower tiara, and the Strathmore rose tiara, all of which were wedding gifts. Her collection was minimal compared to her sisters-in-law, the Duchess of Gloucester and the Duchess of Kent, making this new tiara a significant addition. Duchess Elizabeth, wearing the halo tiara with the Duke on November 4, 1936, was photographed at a charity ball at Claridge's in London, benefiting the South London Hospital for Women. It was their first gala outing since the official end of the lengthy court mourning period for the late King George V. Just a month later, the Duke and Duchess of York's lives would undergo a dramatic transformation, as a result of which Elizabeth wore the tiara less frequently than her husband might have anticipated. Edward VIII ascended to the throne in January 1936, following the death of his father, King George V. Charismatic and popular, Edward seemed a natural fit for the role of king. However, his personal life soon overshadowed his royal duties. On December 11, 1936, Edward VIII made the startling decision to abdicate the throne, unable to balance his love for American divorcee Wallis Simpson with his responsibilities as king. This unprecedented decision shocked the nation and the world. Edward's abdication thrust his younger brother into the spotlight. Albert, who took the regnal name George VI, had never expected to become king. He was a shy and reserved man, plagued by a debilitating stammer and lacking the confidence that his elder brother exuded. His wife, Elizabeth, the Duchess of York, suddenly found herself in the role of queen consort, a position she had never anticipated. Elizabeth, now Queen Elizabeth, harbored deep resentment toward Edward and Wallis. She thought at the time that her husband was not cut out for the job. George VI struggled with the demands of kingship, and the pressure exacerbated his health issues. He died in 1952 at the age of 56. Elizabeth blamed Edward for her husband's early death, convinced that the abdication had placed an unbearable burden on George. The relationship between Elizabeth and Edward was strained to the point of animosity. Elizabeth's biographer Ingrid Seward noted that her attitude toward Edward and Wallis bordered on a vendetta. She never forgave them for the position they had put her and her husband in. Elizabeth believed that Wallis had ruined their lives. However, looking back now, it is impossible to imagine a different course of events. Everything happens for the best, right? During the early years of George VI's reign, Queen Elizabeth was sometimes photographed in the halo tiara. However, she soon had much larger and more majestic tiaras in her collection, which appeared more prominently in her public appearances. Though the halo tiara might have seemed modest for a queen, it was perfectly suited for a princess. With this in mind, Queen Elizabeth likely chose this particular tiara as a gift for her eldest daughter's 18th birthday. In 1944, Princess Elizabeth received the splendid diamond tiara. The hardships in Britain in the immediate post-war years may have led her to decide to avoid potentially being too flashy, even though her mother did return to wearing tiaras post-war. Additionally, Elizabeth had to ascend to the throne at a young age, leaving her little time to wear this tiara. Sadly, young Elizabeth never wore her birthday tiara in public. Instead, Princess Elizabeth frequently loaned the piece to her younger sister, Princess Margaret, who made her first appearance in it during the inauguration celebrations for Queen Juliana of the Netherlands in September 1948. Margaret also wore the jewel at her sister's coronation in June 1953. The tiara was the perfect size for a younger princess, and Margaret wore it often both before and after her marriage to Anthony Armstrong Jones. A few years later, the Queen loaned the Cartier halo tiara to her only daughter, Princess Anne, who wore it for her first tiara appearance at the age of 17 during the state opening of Parliament in 1967. This was the first time she and Prince Charles joined the Queen and Duke of Edinburgh for the annual ceremony. Princess Anne frequently wore the tiara in the late 1960s and early 1970s, alternating with Princess Andrew's meander tiara. However, around the time she married Captain Mark Phillips in 1973, she had gotten the festoon tiara and the Queen Mother's aquamarine pine flower tiara, and thus stopped wearing the Cartier halo tiara. Once Princess Anne moved on to larger diadems, the halo tiara went into the vault, unseen for many years, until Kate Middleton arrived at Westminster Abbey for her royal wedding. The dazzling tiara she chose to wear on April 29, 2011, has become one of the most iconic royal wedding tiaras in history. The Cartier halo tiara's modest size and understated appearance likely made it an attractive choice for Kate. Its lack of domineering, colorful central gems and elegant, timeless design were befitting of a royal bride. After the 2011 royal wedding, the tiara was displayed at the Royal Collections show, The Royal Wedding Dress, a story of great British design at Buckingham Palace, along with the Duchess's wedding dress and veil. I don't know when we'll next see the Cartier halo tiara, but I'm certain it will be another major moment in royal history. Will it quietly sit in the vault for decades until the day Princess Charlotte chooses it for her own wedding? Or will it show up sooner? Thank you for watching this video. Share your impressions in the comments and support my channel by subscribing and liking. Thank you.